So this morning I want to cover several topics. The first one of which will be Azazel. A lot of people don't know what Azazel means, but before I do that, I want to read this particular scripture because it's always fleeting to me. I can't find it when I'm looking for it. And I believe I've almost lost it again. It is very, very important, and it is central to the to this whole theme of this particular YouTube channel. We'll start in Ezekiel 39 verse 25. It says Adonai Yehovah, not Lord God. Okay? I'm going to return the captives of Jacob and have mercy upon the whole house of Israel, and will be jealous for my holy name after they bore their shame. Well, they have borne their shame for nearly 2,000 years. And all the trespasses where they have trespassed against me when they dwelt safely in their land, and none made them afraid. I will bring them again, return them from the people, and gather them out of their enemies' lands. And he's going to be sanctified in them. Sanctified. He's going to be sanctified in them, and right in front of the eyes of many goey. How is he going to do this? He's going to give them strength. Cause little tiny Israel, with Yehuda as in the forefront, to defeat all the Gentiles. So that's what it means. When he is sanctified in them in the sight of many Gentiles, and they shall know not the Lord, but Jehovah Elohim, which causes, so after this, once this has taken place, the Gentiles are going to know that Jehovah caused them to be led into captivity among the Gentiles, but is now gathering them in their own land, and will leave none of them there anymore. Neither will I hide my face from them, for I have poured out my ruach upon the house of Israel, says Adonai Yehovah. Now, what is Azazel? It is concerning Yom Kippur today. Okay. In Jewish tradition, Azazel is a demon or evil spirit that was recipient of an escaped goat bearing the sins of the Jewish people in the ancient Yom Kippur ritual. The name Azazel comes from the Hebrew words azaz, which means to remove or to separate, and El, which means not God, it means Elohim. So Azazel means to remove from El. Who is to be removed from El? One of the goats. One of the two goats. Let's go to Bible Hub for a second. And two goats. Might be two kids from goats. I believe it's right here. I could be wrong. Leviticus 16 and 16. All right. We go to Strong's Concordance. I believe it's here. Where do I find it? So this is concerning the two goats. Verse 8. We'll start in verse 6. And Aaron shall offer his bullock for a sin offering, which is for himself, and make an atonement for himself and for his house. And he shall take the two goats. Two goats. And present them before Jehovah at the door at the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aaron cast lots upon the two goats, one of them the lot for Jehovah. That's right. One of them is for Jehovah. Who do you think that represents? And the other, the lot for the Azazel. Not escape, not scapegoat, but removal. Entire removal. Extrication. Entire removal. That's what it means. And people refer to it as a fallen angel. An entire removal. When will this occur? Well, it will occur when the forces of Apollyon are overthrown. And Satan, that old serpent, is locked in with chains and dropped down into the Mediterranean Sea. I believe I can find it this way. Revelation 20. And I saw a messenger come down from the sky having the key, also having a key to the abyss. You see, the king of the abyss was not the only one that had the key to the abyss. The abyss is the Mediterranean Sea, folks. Because that word right there, you see it right there in front of you, abyssos. Abyssos is the Greek word in reference to the Mediterranean Sea. If you are a Greek scholar, you already know this. And had a great chain in his hand, he laid a hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the abyssos, that's the Mediterranean Sea, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations, the Gentiles no longer, until 1,000 years shall be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed for a little season. Now, who is this then? This one to be Azazel, to be removed, to be completely extricated from Israel. Well, the one who sends his military into Israel to try to defeat them. The one who sent his military into Israel, into Judea, into Jerusalem, and sacked Jerusalem in 70 AD on the Roman calendar. Now, what I'm going to do now, and I want you to remember this because I'm going to go to further scriptures about Apollyon and how Christianity came to worship Apollyon. But I want you to hear something from Mohammed Bin Salman. And 99.9% of people will completely miss this, even if they listen to it. I want you to listen carefully, and I want to show you a few things.
That's a bad move, and you don't need to get a nuclear weapon because you cannot use it. Even if Iran gets a nuclear weapon.
Okay, he said, even if, he's talking about Iran, he says, it makes no sense to get nuclear weapons because you cannot use it. Why is he saying you cannot use it? Listen carefully. You got script, you've got text up here also.
Any country use a nuclear weapon, that means they are having a war with the rest of the world.
Okay, so he said that any country who uses a nuclear weapon, they are going to have a war with the rest of the world. Now, I told you in previous videos over and over and over and over again that Israel would be forced to use the Samson option. Why is that? Because the world put Israel in a position. The world forced Israel in the position where they are going to have to use it. By forcing them to live next door, side by side, with demonic figures like Hamas, like Hezbollah. So Hamas and Hezbollah are going to have to be extricated from the presence of Israel. But the problem is the rest of the world is insisting that Israel live with these demons. The rest of the world being Satan himself. I want you to keep listening to Mohammed Bin Salman.
The world cannot see another Hiroshima. If the world see 100,000 people dead, that means you are in a war with the rest of the world. So it's a useless effort to reach a nuclear weapon because you cannot use it. If you use it, you got to have a big fight with the rest of the world.
If they get one.
And there you have it. If you use nuclear weapons, you're going to have a big fight with the rest of the world. I want you to never forget what he said. Okay? Now, we see right here, Israel's going to have to use nuclear weapons. Right here in Zechariah 14 and verse 12. And this shall be the slaughter wherein Jehovah will smite the people who fought against Jerusalem. That is, all the nations who fought against Jerusalem ever. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. Nuclear weapons. And their eyes shall consume away in the holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. In that day a great tumult from Jehovah will be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor. So this is going to be a world war. Or this will start a nuclear exchange between the Gentiles. And his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. That is how it's going to happen. What's going to start this? How does this get triggered? It's in Ezekiel 39. Right here in verse 6 it says, and I will send a fire on Magog and upon those who dwell carelessly in that's in Rome, all of Europe. And they shall know Jehovah. Send a fire. When this situation occurs, Israel will be forced to use the Samson option. Chapter 38. Right here, when they invade Israel, the Ezekiel 38-39 war, it says in verse 21, and I will call for a sword. That's a declaration of war. Against who? Against in the mountains, says Jehovah Elohim, every man's sword shall be against his brother. Well, that's the same thing we just read in Zechariah 14. So Jehovah is going to declare war. How do you declare war against nations that are far, 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 far away from Israel without firing nukes? Israel can't reach over there with their with aircraft carriers and with their jets, fighter jets and stuff like that. Now they might be able to get over there with their submarines, but they can also get over there with their Jericho 3 and yes, Jericho 4. Oh, you didn't know that that exists? Well, you know now. Missiles. Now, but wait a minute, Henry. What about right here in Revelation 9? I have gone over this time and time again. Not sure if it's already happened or if it's yet to happen. I said that in the last two videos, I believe it was. So the fifth messenger sounded, and I saw a star fall from the sky unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the abyss. Who is this guy? It's not the same one that's tying up the serpent. It's not the same one. Let me show you. And he opened the abyssos, and there arose a smoke out of the abyssos as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the reason of the smoke of the abyssos. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. Where? Don't know. Where upon the earth? And to them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. And was commanded that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which do not have the seal of Jehovah in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months. And the torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. In those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. That part I do not understand, and I don't know if I will ever understand. But when he goes on to say that the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were a crown like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were as teeth of lions, and breastplates of as it were, or like iron. Well, you know, they're clearly now talking about iron vessels, flying iron vessels, and the sounds of their wings was as the sounds of chariots of many horses running to battle. And I've said over and over and over again, that sounds like helicopters. Here's the thing, though. They don't. Let me just go here. Is it flying? Here we go. Flying tigers. So we have, during the World War II, they had teeth like lions. And these airplanes did make a chopping sound a lot like the helicopters do. Okay? And what was it? So the British, which are European, and others who were fighting against the U.S. was fighting against the Japanese, used this type of tactic in order to frighten the Japanese. Chino doctrine preached a radically different approach to air combat based upon a study of Chinese tactics and equipment. His observation of tactics used by Soviet pilots in China during the undeclared Soviet-Japanese border conflicts in 1939, and his judgment of the strengths and weaknesses of his own aircrafts and pilots. The actual average strength of the AVG was never more than 62 combat-ready pilots. Chino and the Flying Tigers benefit from the country's warning network called the best air raid warning system in existence, starting from areas in free China and hundreds of small villages and lonely outposts in the hills and caves, stretching from near Canton all the way through free China, the capital of Chongqing, and to Lanzhou. From there's a maze of alarm stations, equipment, radios, and telephones that give instant warning of approaching Japanese planes. When aircraft, let's see here, I'm looking for, alright, called for pilots to take on enemy aircraft in teams of an altitude advantage, since their aircraft were not as maneuverable nor as numerous as the Japanese fighters they would encounter. He prohibited his pilots from entering into a turning fight with nimble Japanese fighters, telling them to execute a diving or slashing attack and dive away to set up for another attack. This dive and zoom technique was contrary to what the men had learned in U.S. and service, as well as what the Royal Air Navy or Royal Air Force pilots in Burma have been taught. It has been used successfully, however, by Soviet units serving with the Chinese Air Force. So they use them in Burma as well. Let me see if it was formed to help oppose the Japanese invasion of China. Okay, so what was the purpose of the teeth on the Flying Tigers? So let's try that. Okay. The shark's mouth teeth painted on the noses of American volunteer group Flying Tigers were intended to intimidate enemies and to display fighting spirit. So, we see clearly, we have the teeth on the planes. They don't do it anymore. Okay? So the question is this in reference to a time gone by? Now let's look at, one thing I want to mention to you is, never forget that to the victor, or the victor writes the textbooks. Okay? So, Operation Red Hat was the United States Department of Defense movement of chemical warfare munitions from Okinawa, Japan to Johnston Atoll in North Pacific Ocean, which occurred in 1971. It gives a reason why it was done. U.S. chemical weapons were brought into Okinawa in 1962 based upon the recommendation of Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara and according to declassified documents in 1970. U.S. Defense Secretary Melvin Laird met Japanese Defense Agency Chief Yoshiro Nakasone and said that the United States had received information that North Korea had a supply of chemical weapons. The move of chemical weapons to Okinawa in 1962 was meant to serve as a deterrent. So, that takes me to the next article. Alright. So, this is on Wikipedia. In a 1988 book, Korea, The Unknown War, historians John Halliday and Bruce Cummings also suggested the claims might be true. What claims? They questioned whether the North Korean and Chinese could have mounted a spectacular piece of fraudulent theater involving mobilization of thousands, getting scores of Chinese doctors and scientists and senior officials to fake evidence, lie, and invent medical fraud, allocating much of their already stretched logistical resource to defend against biological warfare, all for propaganda campaign against the U.S. What is he talking about? Yeah, I'm scrolling up rather than scrolling down. In 1986, Austrian historian Gavin McCormick, Australian historian, argued that the claim of U.S. biological warfare was far from inherently implausible, pointing out that one of the POWs who confessed, Walker Mahurin, was in fact associated with Fort Detrick. He also pointed out that the deployment of nuclear and chemical weapons was considered. Oh yes! Anyone who was connected to the military knows that, in fact, General MacArthur asked President Truman to deploy nukes in the Korean War. He also pointed out that the deployment of nuclear and chemical weapons was considered. There is no reason to believe that ethical principles would have overruled the resort to biological warfare. He suggested that the outbreak in 1951 of viral hemorrhagic fever, not saying that that is what's described in Revelation 9, but in fact that's not what's described, which had previously been unknown in Korea, was linked to biological warfare. So the case is being made that biological warfare was used against North Korea in the spring of 1952. What else was used? We don't know. But what we do know is this. If you read this whole article, there were men who were Americans who were taken captive by the North Koreans. Who said that these biological weapons and all kinds of things were used in North Korea by the U.S., but once they were freed and brought in front of military officials, they were told that if he repeated that it would be court-martialed and sent to prison. So he changed his story. So there was post-war, just like the U.S. did with the Nazis. They did it with the Japanese. American authorities long denied the charges of post-war Japanese-United States cooperation in biological warfare developments, despite later incontrovertible proof that the U.S. pardoned Unit 731, that's the Japanese unit, who were responsible for all kinds of nasty biological and nerve warfare in China, in exchange for their research, according to Sheldon H. Harris. But in December 1998, in a letter from the Department of Justice official Ellie Rosenbaum to Rabbi Abraham Cooper of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, a U.S. government official admitted that the U.S. had made an amnesty agreement with Shiro Ishii and personnel from the Unit 731 despite known crimes committed by Ishii and associates concerning illegal human experimentation. The letter wasn't made public until published by Jeffrey Kay in May of 2017. It took that long to get the truth out. And who knows what other crimes United States, the British, the French, or any other European countries has committed that would fall in line with what is written in Revelation 9. Now, and they had a king over them, which is the messenger of the Abyssos, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon or Apollo. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that the two goats are Yehoshua and Apollyon, who's associated with Sol Invictus. All right. Now, let me show you what the JWs. Well, I thought I had must be up on top. Yeah. There we go. Jehovah. His name is not Jehovah. It's Yehovah. But see, what people do, and this is what, there's another group, they call themselves Hebrew Israelites, do the same thing. They will take the name and they will twist it just a little bit to use it in an unrighteous manner. No, you say the name correctly, or don't say it at all. So the JWs believe that Jesus was resurrected with a spirit body, and that he assumed human form only temporarily after his resurrection. Biblical references to the messenger Michael and Abaddon. And the word are interpreted as names for Jesus in various roles. This is what they believe. What? Jesus is considered the only intercessor and the high priest between, as they say, God. They refuse to stop using the name of pagan entities, and therefore their hearts are also darkened because of it. And humanity pointed by, as he says, God as the king and judge of his kingdom. His role as a mediator is applied to the anointed class, though the other sheep are said to... So what they're saying is Apollyon is Jesus. Okay, is he? Well, let's look at and let's see what the rest of Christianity sees Jesus as. We'll just Google, or Christ of the Abyss. We'll look up, and there you have it. They also believe that this Jesus is Apollyon, the king of the abyss. And this is located, the first one they placed in the Mediterranean Sea, right there near Rome, and the second one they put in right off the Key Largo, Florida. All right? Now you can have a reference point when you say, when you read here, they had a king over them, which is the messenger of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon, and his name means destroyer, as you can plainly see right there. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to look at Constantine, okay? Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, 306 to 337, played a significant role in the transition of Christianity to dominant religion in Roman Empire. Around 312, Constantine adopted Christianity as his preferred religion. The Eastern Orthodox Church later named him as a Christian saint. Now, don't listen to what somebody says, watch what they do. Constantine coinage shifted from Mars to Sol Invictus, a god associated with Apollyon, beginning in 310. That's, when was, it doesn't matter when, but the point is, shifted from Mars to Sol Invictus, a god associated with Apollo, in 310. Now, didn't I just point out to you several videos ago that written right there in the Vatican that their Jesus is Sol Invictus? So his legitimacy came from who? Constantine's legitimacy, claims of legitimacy, were strengthened by a divine vision of Apollo and victory, which granted him a long reign and rule over the world. So who is the idol of this world, or the god of this world, as the Gentiles say? It is Satan. So Apollyon is Satan. Constantine named his new imperial capital, built upon the European coast of the Bosphorus, New Rome. And they declared, listen to carefully folks, Byzantine tradition considers Constantinople the holy city, wherein the second coming of Christ was expected. So Christianity believes that Rome is where the so-called second coming is coming to, when clearly it is written that Jerusalem is where Yehoshua, the real Mashiach, is coming to. Okay? Now this is a very long one. So what I'm going to, I have it marked off in the purple, or Google did. This is a very, 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 very long one. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but you should. Okay. Indeed, the orator emphasizes ancestry to the inclusion of other factors. No chances agreement with men, nor some unexpected consequence of favor made you emperor, the orator declares to Constantine. The oration also moves away from religious ideology of tetrarchy with its focus on twin dynasties of Jupiter and Heracles. Instead, the orator proclaims that Constantine experienced a divine vision from Apollyon and victory, granting him laurel wreaths of health and long reign in the likeness of Apollo. Remember, Constantine is the foundation, the founder of Christianity today. Their idol of worship is Apollo, Apollyon. Constantine recognized himself as the saving figure to whom would be granted rule over the whole world. Remember, Satan went to Yehoshua and made a promise to him if he would just bow down to him, that he would give him all the kingdoms of this world. Yehoshua rejected him. But Satan instead gave it to Constantine. As the poet Virgil once foretold, the oration religious shift is paralleled by a similar shift in Constantine's coinage in his early reign. The coinage of the Constantine advertised Mars as his patron, but from 310 on, Mars was replaced by Sol Invictus, a god conventionally identified with Apollyon. And Sol Invictus is still at the Vatican today. Okay, so Phobos Apollo, a Greek god associated with healing, poetry, prophecy, and the sun. Apollo was eventually associated with the sun in Rome, and the Greek assimilation of Apollo and Helios was established by the end of the Roman Republic. Sol Invictus was also associated with the Mithraic mysteries, and the two were sometimes equated in Mithraic art. Mithras was often depicted with a solar crown. Yes, the solar crown, which is the, what do you call that? What do Christians call that thing? I can't even remember. Which is usually associated with Sol Invictus. The Roman emperor played a central role in the cult of Sol Invictus, and in AD 3030, this was after he brought made Christianity the mainstream religion. This was after the Council of Nicaea in 325. Constantine depicted himself as Apollo in a statue wearing a sun crown. He did exactly the same thing that Antiochus IV did. The personification of the devil himself. So, what you're doing is this. When you bow down and worship this Jesus, with sun crown, that's right, with a sun crown, you are worshiping Satan, because Antiochus IV became possessed by the devil himself while doing the same thing. And he invaded Jerusalem. He sacked the temple, and he put his own statue at the temple in Jerusalem as Zeus. And he offered swine's flesh on the altar. So Christianity is the embodiment of the Hellenes of Antiochus IV, the enemy, the arch enemy of the Jews. So this is Satan that you see right here. This is Azazel. This is Apollyon. Sol Invictus was the official sun deity of the late Roman Empire and the later version of the idol Sol. And I've pointed out to you, you look at this picture, that is also Attis, who is the transvestite idol that you can look it up, Attis, Attis, look it up, you'll see that the image is exactly the same. Okay? Was an epithet utilized for several Roman deities, including Jupiter, which is Satan, Mars, Hercules, Apollo. It has been used from the 3rd century BCE. Alright? Constantine and later emperors. Okay. Festival of does not tell us Soli Invicti. The birth date of the invincible sun on December the 25th. So when you go and celebrate Christmas, you are worshiping Apollyon. You are worshiping Satan. A widely held theory is that the church chose December 25th as Jesus Christ's birthday to appropriate the festival of Sol Invictus' birthday, held on the same date. And I have proven to you, using the Hebrew calendar, that Yehoshua was born in early summer. In early summer. On the month where Shavuot occurs. I've proven it many, many times on this YouTube channel. Alright, so there you have it. And one more thing. There is a mosaic at the Vatican necropolis that depicts Christ as Sol Invictus, the Roman sun god. You see? Now, I did a video a couple of months ago where the Vatican actually calls Helios Sol Invictus. So Helios, Apollyon, Jesus, Attis, all of them are the same vile, transvestite idol of the Romans. And that is what is depicted in Revelation 9, beginning in verse 1 through 11. The arch enemy of Israel. The one that's going to be chained up and have a seal put on him and dropped to the bottom of the abyss, the Mediterranean Sea.